Giannis's future. It's hung over the Bucks all season long, and it sharpens today. So how exactly did we get here? Well, according to Shams, after the team fell to 9-13, that was December 1st, his agent, Giannis, reiterated the time has come to part ways, but the trade deadline, it came and went, and no trade happened. And all the while, Giannis is dealing with injuries, and that eventually caused the NBA to launch an investigation into the Bucks for shutting him down. By the way, in the background, Giannis is still eligible for a 4-year, $275 million contract extension on October 1st, or he could be traded. So Shams has an excellent piece. It's up right now on ESPN.com, and it really details in excruciating fashion in a lot of ways what the Bucks organization, Doc Rivers, Giannis, has been going through this entire year. So can you just walk us through some of the stories that I think tell a much bigger picture than we've seen before about this contentious standoff?
So, Malika, one source with the team told me this week and really summed it up. When your best player is 1 foot in, 1 foot out, you're just not going to win. That tension bleeds over to the environment of the team, the culture of the team, and most importantly, the levers and misalignment across the organization. You think about your ownership group, your management, your coaches, and your players. It bleeds into all of that. And one specific example where we saw that from the coach and the player dynamic was the most critical point in the Bucks calendar. That was the first week of March, Malika. And that's when the Bucks had a string of games where they had to win these games. It was make or break to make the play-in tournament, which they had sold to Giannis. We're going to get to the playoffs and make some noise. And on March 1, they lost in Chicago, a double-digit lead. It ended up being a blowout defeat. Then comes March 2. It was a game of a back-to-back against the Boston Celtics. Doc Rivers called for a team meeting that day. And the day of the game, this team meeting, my understanding is in that meeting, Doc Rivers implored his team, according to 6 people in the room, to look at my resume and, quote, Google me. I took teams to the playoffs and championship that weren't supposed to be there. I thought this was one of them. That was not well received internally. And that was just another example of the disconnect between player and coach. I'll give you another example.
Wait a second. Danny's laughing. I want to hear this.
It wasn't taken well? No, wow. I couldn't believe that wasn't taken.
Have you ever had a coach say that? Look at my resume,
Google me? I've had some coaches say some things. And I was coached by Doc. I wouldn't say a lot surprised. Doc was very good at talking to the group. Not a lot surprised me when certain things happened. And I've been a part of organizations where superstars are 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
Right.
You know, I've had the Kawhi situation. I've had Ben Simmons situation, even James Harden. It didn't get prolonged this far out or this long. I feel like Giannis should have been moved a long time ago.
Right.
But Doc, sometimes, again, I mean, there's a young group in here. I don't know.
That laugh was very knowing, but you see it in another example.
There was another example that also rubbed players the wrong way, but also was a big part of the second half of the season. March 21st, they had a game in Phoenix. There was a shoot-around that day. And my understanding is there was another team meeting, but this only had the veteran players in it, the coaches and the veteran players. So the Giannis of the world, the Bobby Portises, Kyle Kuzmas, Miles Turner, Taurean Prince, etc. And in that meeting, Doc Rivers, one by one, addresses each player, gives them feedback. Taurean Prince, Kyle Kuzma, gets to Miles Turner, and that's when multiple people in the room told me that Doc Rivers let Miles Turner know that he felt disappointed in Turner's play, that he expected more this season. And as the group started to exit the meeting was wrapping up, Giannis and Bobby were not addressed in that meeting. They're the 2 long-standing players on the Bucks. So as everyone's starting to move away, they both speak up. They both address the group. So Bobby Portis speaks up, but Giannis particularly, he's been at the focus of all of this.
Right.
In front of the coaches, in front of everyone. He stands to support Kyle Kuzma and Taurean Prince. And Miles Turner specifically telling him, listen, I let you down. It's my fault I wasn't healthy. I wasn't able to be there for you. I'm not disappointing you. It's on me. I should have been there for you and been available. And that, again, shows what the message was from the coach and what the message is from the star player, and clearly a disconnect internally there.
There's so much within what you just said. Is Iman Shumpert still there?
Shump's still around.
Yeah, there he is.
Here.
I'm curious what your reaction is to everything that we just heard Shams detail.
Honestly, I'm curious to how Shams knows all that information coming out of a locker room.
The best in the business right here.
I am shocked. But to hear that, I definitely agree with Shams that it's like when you hear that disconnect, if you're in that locker room, I can only imagine the uncertainty that you're dealing with as far as what's the plan for me individually, what's the plan for the team now, what's the plan for the coaching now that, you know, there's a disconnect with the team. There's just a lot of question marks that now can creep into your locker room, and I don't like that for them.
So what now, Shump? You've been on many NBA teams. You've been on teams competing for championships. You've been on teams that are struggling and would have been in the play-in range if that was something that was happening.
What now for Giannis?
Right now for Giannis.
Oh, Giannis, it's time to get some sunshine, brother. You were supposed to get it early on. You didn't want to be the bad guy. And this is what I started to come to the realization that, you know, I wanted Giannis. I wanted to see Giannis finally put on a Knicks jersey, and I wanted them to explore that. But seeing how all of this is happening on the, you know, the leaving the Milwaukee Bucks and how this has been kind of a back and forth and there's some tension there, I wouldn't want Giannis to go to New York anymore and, you know, bring any of that tension to the New York media. They're sharks. They're going to eat this up. And I think that would do again to a locker room what you don't want to see happen. So now, to get some fresh air, you want to get the media off your back, you want to get everybody off your back, go ahead and go play in Golden State with Steph. That's what I want to see now.
I don't think the media is going to be any light there. I mean, wherever he goes, he's going to bring the media with him.
It don't got to be light.
Yeah,
it don't got to be light. It's just Steph could save him.
For sure, maybe so. We don't know who can, but he definitely needs a new home. I do appreciate him stepping up for his guys. And Doc is, you know, like certain coaches are known to be players coaches. Doc is definitely a players coach, but more of like a superstar coach. So maybe he, like, wouldn't say angled or what's named towards certain guys and not gave Giannis some of the backlash or whatever it may be. But Giannis stepped in for those guys and said his piece. And, you know, sometimes that could rub superstars the wrong way. So, but in the sense of Giannis going to New York, I wouldn't mind seeing him in a New York Knicks jersey. I think he can handle the media there.
I mean, that's another example of what you just said. So,
okay, Daddy.
Kyle Kuzma, Miles Turner, a couple other veterans, Doc Rivers, the Bucks organization basically saying, listen, like, ownership is not going to be happy, does not want you to sit with illegitimate injuries as this team is down the line here.
Yep.
We know where they're at. We know what they're playing for. The one player that didn't get that same edict is Giannis.
Right. So, Shump, you said you were impressed by just how much insight into this Shams has. I always am. So listen carefully as we tick off a couple of things here. One, do you, based on your reporting, believe that a breakup is inevitable with Giannis and the Bucks? And two, that investigation on whether or not he's going to play again this season, whether or not he's played his last game, what are you hearing there?
So let's start with the first part. Forget what I think. Everyone at the highest levels around the Bucks, you think about ownership on down, believes there's an inevitability to what this is and a trade this offseason based on where the Bucks are at with all this, based on where Giannis Antetokounmpo has clearly been at with this. The past, in a lot of ways, has set up the present. And in 2020 and in 2023, when Giannis signed his contract extensions, sources on both sides told me there was a gentleman's agreement, a promise of sorts, that if the time ever came that Giannis was ready for a trade, ownership and management would work collaboratively to assist that. And so you think about when these requests started last May, these around Giannis looked at unfulfilled promises. So fast forward to 2 weeks before the deadline, Giannis, his agent, meet with Jimmy Haslam and Wes Edens 2 weeks before the deadline and say, hey, we're ready, do right by Giannis. They do engage with teams. There's conversations that are had. There's one team and one offer that the Bucks seriously considered in the final hours at the NBA trade deadline. That's the Miami Heat. That's an offer around Tyler Hero, Khalil Ware, other players, multiple first-round picks, multiple swaps. The Bucks obviously chose not to do that deal. My understanding is ownership believed there would be better for them in the offseason. It's best to wait on this decision until the summer. As I talked to teams that were involved in this at the deadline, like Minnesota and Golden State and Miami, etc., there were a dozen or so teams. They do believe those same comparable offers, if not better, slightly, will be there for the Bucks this offseason. So I'm not worried about that part of it if I'm Milwaukee. But Giannis will have 1 year left on his deal, and that does give him significant leverage in terms of how much a team is willing to give up if he's not ready and willing to extend.
Okay, and you said something very important there. This offseason is when your sources are saying this, not extending into next season, this offseason. Shump, last word on this, because you were making all sorts of faces over there in New York.
Because I was leaning in. I don't really have any more on the situation. I just know, Shams, when you go to sleep at night, lock that phone into the safe at your hotel. Make sure nobody gets a hold of it. I don't know how you know all
Shams,
that, brother.
Gentlemen's agreement here from me. We'll make sure the phone is safe. All right, let's